با تشکر از شما برای حضورتون. جلسه امروز ما در رابطه با وضعیت گروه اتنیک و محیط زیست در ایران هست. اولین سخنران ما آقای فیصل مرمزی، ایشون مدیر اجرایی رئیس مرکز حقوق بشر اهواز، کارشناس ارشد در آیتی از دانشگاه لندن هستند که در رابطه با اعدامها در زندانهای اهواز صحبت خودشون رو آغاز می‌کنند. بفرمایید.
Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, before I start, I would like to thank these respectful organization for its incessant endeavors in assisting those under pain or harm and in exposing and atrocities of those dictators who caused such suffering. Thanks from our organization, the Ahwaz Center for Human Rights, for allowing us this opportunity to stand here and speak about our suffering, and thank you from our nation for raising the concern about their operation. About 2 months ago, the Iranian brutal regime has executed 2 Ahwazi activists under foolish secrecy and without allowing their families to even see their bodies or to perform a dignified burial ceremony. Hashim Sha'bani and Hadi Rashidi, a poet and a school teacher, were merely involved in forming a cultural institution called Al-Hiwar. They were no more than educated community figures that would have ample respect among their peers and people. Both were executed because they were expressed discontent toward the Iranian regime horrific treatment to our people. It is almost 90 years since the regime of Reza Shah Pahlavi occupied our land Al-Ahwaz, in which we have ever been considered second-class citizens in Iran. In those days, Reza Shah's chauvinist racism and his intense nationalism had driven him to lay down a racist foundation for the newly reconstructed Iran after World War I. And by the Westerns, he was able to impose his power over the current map of Iran, and mainly by the force. Reza Shah's days are gone, and however, his nationalist heritage continued ever since. And despite major political change, the successive regimes has adopted the same nationalist culture toward other ethnic groups in this land. The reason for this heritage to survive all these generations is that the Pahlavis has built their culture deeply inside the entire Iranian modern literature and on social levels. The Persianization machine has continued since those days via a large array of institutions such as the Academy of Persian Language and Literature or the Organization of a Cultural Heritage. Ladies and gentlemen, we the Ahwazi Arab in what so-called Iran, beside other nations including Azerbaijani Turks, Kurds, Baluch, Turkmen and other minorities, are facing dissemination by the Persian nationalism of the Iranian regime. Our land are confiscated, our resources are exploited, our language is being forced away, and if we practice our cultural, we would end up in a prison and may face execution. In 2013, during April and March only, we received reports about 325 individual arrests in different towns and villages in Al-Ahwaz regions, simply because they are celebrated an Ahwazi Nation Day and week. We, the people of Al-Ahwaz, are facing what we call a silent ethnic cleansing. Our capital Al-Ahwaz is listed in the most polluted city on the earth, according to the latest ranking by the World Health Organization. A few reasons for this disaster are irrefutable. One is that the regime has diverted the main rivers in our region and redirected the water to the Persian-dominated areas in Iran, Central Blue, which lead to infertility in our land and significantly degraded our environment. Second, the Iranian regime has transformed our land into a highly industrialized region during the last 2 decades. However, never implemented any supervision measure to prevent or preventative mechanism to avoid all the air pollution from our cities. Thirdly, the Iranian regime is irresponsibly desiccated the Ahwaz marsh on the border between Iran and Iraq, which result in irreversible harms to our ecosystems. Studies show that the periodic sandstorm that our region is consistently experiencing during summer are mainly caused by this desiccation. Reportedly, within hours, in November 26, 2013, 3,000 people were admitted to the Central Hospital in Ahwaz city for respiratory issues. We believe that the current regime has deliberately allowed or perpetrated this environment degradation in our land or simply neglected its responsibility to protect this land and the environment. The regime has failed to force our people to desert their land and their resources. Nevertheless, it is now aiming to destroy our environment, hoping to force our people migrated from their land get further assimilated in the Persian culture and Persian-dominated areas. From this stand, I would like to call on all those who believe in human rights and human dignity to join our voice with us against the tyrants who are facing us to change our culture, against those who are make us feel and to believe a second-class citizen in our homeland. We are not able to study in our language or to freely practice our culture. We are buried from our resources like land, water, natural resources, or even clean air. And when we refuse to live with this suppression, we are called terrorists or enemy of God, and we would be executed by the regime brutal security services. From this stand, we conjure to the world to help our nation find life and freedom. We, the Arabs of Ahwaz, would like to call to be included in the talk between the 5+1 group and Iran. We call on the world powers and the international institutions that can exert pressure on the Iranian regime to force Iran to stop diverting our rivers, stop desecrating our land, stop random and sporadic arrest, stop executing our youth and release all our prisoners. Thank you and accept my wishes.